Over the weekend, we had the South Australian state election where, a first-term Liberal government led by Stephen Marshall was trampled by Labor with a fresh-faced Peter Malinauskas. It also marked the first time since COVID in Australia where an incumbent government was not re-elected. In the aftermath of the Liberals' loss, the introspection has begun, with many criticising the Liberals' moderate campaign and calling for the Liberals to stop dancing with the Greens. Joining me now to discuss this and more, my Tuesday panel of intellectual substance, I like to call it, from Adelaide, columnist with The Australian, Dr Jennifer Oriel, and from Malali in New South Wales, former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, John Anderson. I'll start with you, Jennifer, if I can, given you're a South Australian. I said at the top of my show, in the end, there wasn't a hell of a lot of difference between Malinauskas on the Labor side and Marshall on the Liberal side, given how far he'd taken the Liberal Party to the left, was there?
No, I think on social cultural issues there wasn't a great deal of difference, but in fact there were significant cultural war, they call them, issues, but ones of moral conscience during the Marshall government's tenure, and one of those was on late-term abortion. There was a reform proposed by the Liberal Party that critics said would basically allow a legal loophole so that there could be abortion very, very late in a pregnancy. Malinauskas stood against it. So we see here, on an issue that mattered to Conservatives, and not just Conservatives, there were many Labor voters who were also concerned about it. We saw the Labor candidate from Labor Right standing up for what he believed in, and Marshall's government not doing so well on that matter in the early stages of the debate. So there were issues for Conservatives that concerned them early on, but I think there weren't a lot of differences after that. Malinauskas was stronger, he was fitter, they ran a better, tighter campaign, and they appealed to the South Australian electorate. They were more believable, more credible. Marshall was seen as weak in the end, too weak to govern.
John, I went through the issues around the country. I mean, in Victoria, you've got Matthew Guy, a moderate, in charge now. He is the reason there was such a landslide again to Daniel Andrews at the last election. You've got the wipeout in WA, again led by a Liberal moderate, so much so that the National Party is the official opposition there. You've got the moderate in South Australia losing it. You've got a great Conservative leader in New South Wales in the Premier, but his cabinet is controlled by the moderates and people like Matt Kean. This is where the Liberal Party is in danger of losing its Conservative connection with the people in the electorate who vote for them, who are Conservative and are the only reason they ever get to government.
Well, I think it's important to remember that a couple of years ago now, that Ipsos found that around a third of Australians identify as left-wing, or we might use the word inclined towards wokeism now, a third. It's rising, but it's still about a third. About 17% of the electorate self-identify as Conservative, and the rest would call themselves moderate. But you see, if you're a Conservative, you start to wonder who speaks for you, because it seems that everybody wants to speak for the green end of the political spectrum, whether it's most of the media, whether it's most of academia, whether it's drama, whether it's the arts world. And then you find that most of the Labor Party is very wokish, and you find that those who would normally, if you like, offer a very attractive home for people who still hold on to what Conservative values remain in the country, are not exactly made to feel welcome. And I think this needs to be taken into account. And the other thing about it is that so often it's so intellectually empty. I mean, the idea that a Conservative isn't concerned about the environment, I was thinking about this today. I'm a farmer. I'm very concerned about the environment, but I want it based on fact and on reason. And I'd like some acknowledgement of the fact that we go out of our way to be good stewards of the land.